huge excavator. Those of you who watched my first video about this waterhole will remember the quite extensive process we went through of listening and consulting the land, getting lots of signs from my own dog Kumba, who turns out to be a bit of a water engineer. We also listened to all the animals and plants in the ecosystem, and that all helped us make the decision as to where to actually dig this huge water hole that is going to be for both the horses and the wildlife. And so we had some really cool signs. I say we, I mean me and Kumba. We were the ones who were on this journey of discerning and listening. And of course with the horses as a backup support. But it was really Kumba and me who were working closely together. And we, first of all, had two hawks fly right overhead when Kumba laid down and looked at me, and I was like, is this the spot? Is this the center of the waterhole? And at that point, two hawks flew overhead. And then we also had a couple of butterflies and dragonflies playing and caught my attention. I looked. And then I looked down and I saw deer droppings, which was another sign to show that the deer feel safe to come here. So this would be a good spot for them to also drink. And the final confirmation I received to put the water hole down here where it's actually completely out of sight of the house was two wild ducks flew right over my head. And they were heading up towards the water hole, but I could see that they never landed. And their message was, we want a water hole, we want a pond, but we can't feel safe at the existing water hole because it's too close to the house and the dogs. Because keep in mind, these are wild ducks. These are not ducks in the city that have grown up around people and dogs and whatnot. So we had three pretty clear signs in addition to my own intuition and also the very clear messaging from Kumba. This is Kyle from Cairo Contracting here in Lumby, BC, Canada. And as I watch him operate this huge, powerful machine, I am struck again by our human ingenuity to create these super easy ways to destroy an environment in a matter of minutes or hours. The responsibility for that kind of power hits me every time I watch these machines work. If you've ever seen a forest cleared of 80 to 100 years of growth in a few hours, you'll know exactly what I mean. What's really interesting about this waterhole and the spot that Kumba and the land showed me is it has its own spring. As we dig, I'm astounded to see there is a good inflow of water that is not coming from the water hole further up. and which then comes from the overflow from our well. It actually has its own underground spring that we are unearthing. So this is just more confirmation that we did hear and read all the signs right. As you watch this Waterhole project take shape, you'll notice that Kyle alternates between digging and excavating and then sculpting and forming the structure that is going to maintain the integrity of the Waterhole, not just during the construction, but over time. And as you have animals, and especially horses with their punchy hooves, the sides have to be compacted and shaped and sloped properly. The berms have to have the right angle and also be high enough, not just for the surrounding landscape, but also for the water, and in terms of how high we want the water to come up before it drains out of the Waterhole. There are a lot of considerations that are happening here. At this stage of the excavation, the arm is almost like a sculptor's hand. And I love watching how Kyle uses all the different parts of the bucket and the arm to get exactly the result that he wants in terms of scooping, balancing, shaping, compacting. It's really an art. As Kyle carries on smoothing out and evening up and patting down the edges of this Waterhole, I'm kind of wondering why he's paying so much attention to the finishing details when the hole is only half as deep as it needs to be. Soon Kyle gets out of his excavator and comes over to talk to me, and I find out what's happening. As you can see, the water at the bottom of the hole is gathering. What's happened is underneath there is gravel. So if we remove the clay that is forming the base of this Waterhole and basically being a water retentive barrier, and we start digging down and there's nothing but gravel, our Waterhole could turn into a drainage hole where the water just drains down into the earth and it doesn't hold water. So that's my call to make as the person paying for the project and whose land it's on. So I took a few moments, I dropped into meditative state, I connected with the land, I connected with the animals, and I asked, what should we do? And I got a very strong directive to keep digging. It would be okay. And as you can see, as he digs, you can see how much gravel there is. There is a very nice, thick layer of gravel in this Waterhole before we break through once again and we're down to clay. And clay, as I said, will be that waterproof, water retaining substance that will enable this Waterhole to actually hold water and not have it drain back into the earth. So awesome. If you've ever driven an excavator or a skid steer or something, you know how difficult it is not to tip these machines over. That's what's amazing about watching Kyle work, is he almost has a felt sense in his own body of where this machine is, and then he uses the arm as leverage. Like right now, that arm is pulling him out of the hole, and then at other times you'll see him use that arm to prevent the excavator from actually flipping. So you really have to appreciate the artistry and the skill involved here. It's absolutely fascinating. Like, check this out. He is literally teetering on this edge, and a lot of the weight is going forward into the hole. This guy has a ton of experience. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows this machine inside and out. The other thing I've noticed over the years is whenever we're doing some major work to the environment, the horses always like to stay nearby, and they like to keep an eye on things, and I think they feel it's quite exciting and they want to be a part of it. I've asked Kyle to save any big rocks or boulders that he finds because I want to use them for decorative elements and also for seating around the waterhole. I've noticed that not just myself, but many of the animals and birds love to have a nice place to sit or perch around a waterhole. You can see now here we are down to our desired depth of 7 feet, where the water is below the 4-foot freezing level for this climate. And you can see that he has removed all the gravel, and we are back into clay, and the water is once again accumulating in the water hole. And he's saving those big rocks, so we're going to use them to put a little decorative grouping at the end. I went to get snacks, and look what he's done. And there's our hawk. Hello, thanks for coming by. I think when most people think about digging a water hole or excavating a hole, they have no idea the amount of shaping and fine-tuning that goes in. We just think, oh, he's just gonna scoop out a hole. But you have to get the slopes right, and here he's compacting it using the weight of the arm to press down the earth at key stress points. Here he's using the arm to brace himself so the machine doesn't tip as he comes down what's actually quite a big slope, because he's built up this bank quite a bit. And now it's not just about the slope down to the water hole, it's the slope on the other side, because you know, he wants a nice surface for the horses to come up, and he also wants it visually to look nice. So the whole thing is just not just digging a hole, but more of a sculpture. And he's put a little culvert. We want the water to drain out at the natural place that it was draining before. So we're not going to do a pipe or anything aggressive like that. We're just going to do a slight depression and keep an eye on it and see what nature does. And the water hole might ask me to line that little culvert with rocks, or it might want it just the way it is, but time will tell. We will see what happens as we watch the horses and the wildlife use this hopefully beautiful, helpful new water hole. And now it's time to place the boulders for our natural seating and viewing area. By this time, I have a lot of trust in Kyle's artistry, so I just leave him to it. If you or I were to hand rake or smooth or even rent a compactor to do the kind of shaping Kyle's doing, we would only have minimal effectiveness against the 2,000 pound punch power of a horse's hoof. But because he's using the excavator, which weighs thousands of pounds, I don't even know how many, maybe 8,000, 10,000 pounds, and the soil here has a large clay content, I am surprised how packed hard the sides and top of this water hole are, even after the horses start using it and walking across it with their punchy little hooves. And there we have it, the finishing touches on an absolutely beautiful water hole. The other thing I'd like to change, but I'm disciplining myself to just stay and watch, is this is the lowest side, but it still looks way too steep for me for the horses. So even when the water comes up to say there, that's still, this lip here is still going to be too steep. So I'd really love to smooth that out, but I am going to make myself wait until this water level comes up to where I can actually see what happens, and then also watch and see what happens. Do the horses smooth out that ledge with their own hooves? Do they create their own access point? Again, all of this can take time. So it's a real challenge. I think the biggest challenge for us humans with projects like this is the waiting and listening and watching. It's not the doing. The doing is like the super easy stuff that we get really excited about and we're really used to doing. So look at that beautiful reflection. However, after just a few days of light rain, the groundwater flow to here has really increased. I'm going to stop talking so you can hear it. So we've had a few days of light rain, but there's still nothing down here that leads to that slough. So this pathway is only fed by the water that's going to come out of our new water hole. So that's something that's good to know, that this won't replenish itself just from rainwater, and there's no groundwater coming into here like there is into the water hole there. So this is why it's important to just keep an eye on everything that we do that changes the natural environment, and just really watch and listen for a long time to try and map all the components.